Alright, so this is going to be about increasing consciousness. Um, so there is a battle of good and evil that's brewing inside of all of us. And when it comes to this battle, the pendulum is in the first stage, just swinging back and forth. You're absorbing all of the information, and you're trying to understand, pick a side. And this keeps going on until the individual identifies what good and evil it is in their mind. And you witness this battle happen on three different levels: society, relationships, and the individual. um, I've been speaking a lot about the individual consciousness and the way how we perceive that, but it also happens in a relationship, and it's probably one of the things that most people don't take account into when they go into a relationship. Is in the beginning it's like the definition, you're attracting each other through love, and it's gonna progress through the same stages, which I'll get to those stages here soon. I'll show you the pictures of the stages. Well, I'll leave a link. So it may progress to like 2 months, and then you're like, okay, this isn't gonna work, because everything wasn't fully assimilated, but you felt like there was no need to go through that process in time. But when you've been together a lot longer, like a year or two, you've realized that you've undergone changes, and the person who you're with, hopefully they've gone through changes as well, because you're adjusting to each other. You're trying to come together. And then you see it also happening on the levels of society. I mean, a great example of that right now would be what's going on in politics. The Democrats and the Republicans. It's hate, hate, hate. And what that tells me is that there's going to be a change, because it's progressed for so long that we've come to a tipping point where something's gonna give and something's gonna go away. I don't see that happening until about 2025. I think we're coming to the tipping point around 2020, and then after 2020, we'll start to see the fallout of the effects of everything. And by 2025, we should coalesce back together as one society, or close enough to one society, because America is complicated. So that's kind of like what I see going on that end. And the cool thing about understanding these things is you can see it all the time. And I ain't gonna lie, I've been paying attention close to the whole political thing, and I've been trying to help things to where it doesn't all go like completely gone in a way, and everything breaks out into like a worst disaster case scenario. But when you're able to see these things, you know how to interject yourself into the situations to where you can help pull things to the direction to where everything needs to flow. You're looking at the flow of the energy, and you're bringing it to that way. And you either are with the flow or you resist the flow. And unless the flow is dangerous, sometimes it's the easiest path to take. Like choosing the path of least resistance. So there's a quote from Carl Jung. If the subjective consciousness prefers the ideas and opinions of collective consciousness and identifies with them, then the contents of the collective unconsciousness are repressed, and the more highly charged the collective consciousness, the more the ego forfeits its practical importance. It is, as it were, absorbed by the opinions and tendencies of collective consciousness, and the result of that is the mass man, the everyday victim of some wretched ism. The ego keeps its integrity only if it does not identify with one of the opposites, and if it understands how to hold the balance between them. This is possible only if it remains conscious of both at once. Okay, so, that was kind of trying to explain partial of what I was talking about before. But, okay, so let's go into this collective consciousness and the collective unconsciousness. Okay, so the collective consciousness is everything that we see now, mixed in with a little bit of the past, but maybe the meaning of it has changed a little bit in our present day. Whereas a collective unconsciousness is everything that humanity has done, mostly relating to symbols and things of that nature that are in us. And it's telling you that if you're if you identify with a collective consciousness and you don't go to that and you don't research the collective unconsciousness, then you're going to repress the collective unconsciousness. And that's not a good thing, because then you're just going to be sucked into victim of what everybody tells you is true. When you're looking at the media or you're reading a book, it's good to do these things. It's not bad. But you take what you're given and you research it. And you have to research both sides of it, because if you don't research both sides, you're going to miss something and you're going to fall into that pit where you're going to be crawling out of a tunnel someday looking for daylight. And then, here's the most important concept. If you win, you do not really learn anything until you are defeated. Being defeated is the gateway to the unconscious, for it is a necessary part of experiencing the opposites. And I will say that I didn't really fully experience this or quite understand that until I experienced my most worst defeat in my life, to where it was like everything was taken away from me, and I was like, I was just screwed. But once that happened, I was able to let other things come into me, because at that point, I knew that everything that I had done before was wrong. It wasn't working out. It was the wrong path. The end was not a good end. And you have to, and once you realize that, then you can be like, okay, well, this definitely does not work. So you know what? I gotta try something new. And the new thing that I tried at that moment was, up until that moment, I thought pretty negative. Like, the worst things possible were always going to happen to me. And only me. I was selfish in that way. But I was bringing upon my own suffering by thinking it, which was, when I look back at it, was really, really stupid. So I was like, okay, I gotta think positive. So I started thinking positive. And once I started thinking positive, the negative slowly disappeared. It's still there, but I handle it a lot better. I don't go like wacko insane when I get faced with a situation. I stop and pause and I think, okay, well, if I do this, this, and that, this is going to happen. If I do this, that's going to happen. But, and even the situations that haven't come, like, if you're looking at something, you're like, oh man, I'm a month ahead, I'm just like screwed, I don't know what I'm going to do, blah, 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 blah. Don't think about that month. Just stay focused right now. You don't know what's going to happen between now and there. Who knows? You might survive it. So I literally changed my whole thinking process to thinking positive, taking it a day at a time, learning to just, when something didn't work, just drop it, figure out something that does work. And it's a process, and it's that process to where you're finding different answers to getting things to work that helps change your consciousness and helps move you forward. Yes, you're going to go through suffering. I'm sorry, I can't eliminate that for you. But suffering is not bad. It's just the process of the mistakes that we made, karma if it may be. The story of Buddha was a great example of that because, before he went out of his palace, he'd never seen suffering. And it changed him. And it'll change you, it changes me, it changes everybody. Embrace the suffering. But back to love and hate. You can love and you can hate people and things, but unless you fully reflect on it, your consciousness will not expand. You are the fool of your illusion until you have a deep understanding of things that you love and hate. So the more you analyze what you love and hate, the more likely you're going to find a portion of you in it. And the ego will create 1,000 different disguises to hide itself in you because it doesn't want you to know that it is not real. And that's hopefully through all this whole process, what you'll come to understand is that the ego is not real. And the ego, is, but it makes it look like it's real, and it's why you have the desire to have and want, and you're bound and chained to the earth. But you can get rid of it, you can reduce it and get rid of it, and you can live a more freer, happier life. But of course, and that's really what the suffering portion of everything is it's the reduction of your ego. And it has a name, and it's your name. I'm not necessarily saying that you are your ego, but like I said in that analogy with Gab, Nut, and Shoe, Gab and Nut come together and Shoe went in between them to create this bubble. Shoe was that ego that created the bubble and made the opposites. The bipolar opposites are the creation of the ego because it wants you to see things differently than one. And everything is one. And until you see it, you gotta try and keep finding it. Well, that concludes today. I will see you guys next Thursday, or you'll see me. I guess I really don't see you. So I'll be doing this again on next Thursday, and until then, I hope this had some kind of profound message for you, and hopefully it rises your consciousness. And until then, peace, have a good one, think positive, bye.